Welcome back to the Feeble Minded Podcast. Today I'm joined by legendary DJ and producer Darude. What's going on, man?
Nothing much, man. Thanks for the kind words. This has been, you don't even know, man. This has been a long time coming. I've been a fan for a good while. And
Really?
oh yeah, dude. Well, I guess part of the reason why we're chatting is that I'm a skater as well, and you've taught me a lot. So
That's funny. I would actually, people would message me on from my YouTube channel, and they'd be like, "You realize Darude's commenting on your videos?"
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was like, I started paying attention. I saw you actually could skate, and so we started getting to become friends then.
Yeah. It's kind of funny because I like that always is interesting to me because you really do. Like, I'm a normal guy. Like, I know I've had a hit record and whatnot. I've been around in the dance music world for a good while, but I've never really understood how can he be here, or whoever, celebrity. Like, I mean, people have lives. I consider myself rather a normal guy, and I follow stuff that I like your tutorials and also your Skate Across America and all kinds of stuff. And you're not the only skate person, YouTuber that I comment on and follow. So I don't know. It's just something that interests me.
Yeah, it's like at the end of the day, no matter how famous anyone is, like, you still use the internet. You still have interest. Yeah. You know what I mean? You're just like, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting thing, the fame. Like, obviously, I'm not a famous person, really, at all. In Finland, I am like a known face, but elsewhere, any other country, pretty much, I could walk anywhere. I could walk even at a dance music event, and very few people would recognize me because my music is not really. It's not a pop thing. It's not really sold with my face. While obviously I'm trying to brand the person as well and associate that with my music so that it's easier to market and whatnot. But it's not the same as like the Justin Biebers or Taylor Swifts or whatnot, who are just like mega superstars as their persona as well. And then at the same time, I've also never felt like I'm any sort of big anything. I just make music, and I've been fortunate to get to do what I love for a living. So it's been great.
Oh, that's incredible. So in Finland, when you're walking around, it's pretty common you'll be recognized, or occasionally?
Yeah, and like in a sense that there's a good reason for it. Like, while my music I haven't had a hit record in a long time in Finland. I've released several albums, and I get a little bit of airplay and this and that, and I do interviews and such. But early 2000s, when my first tracks were released, my first release, Sandstorm, went to number 3 on a UK single sales chart, which was the first Finnish track to ever do that. So regardless of my genre, the dance music and trance, I was definitely a topic of discussion for a while, and I did like TV shows, late night shows and kids shows, all kinds of stuff, and I became sort of a household name and face, possibly as much for being the first one from Finland as with my actual music. So it was and kind of is a thing of national pride, and of course my personal pride as well. And there's been obviously others since then, but it's actually an insane thing that my track happened to be the first ones to not to be played outside of Finland, of course, but to actually do like a chart success like that. Yeah,
it's definitely like you get the momentum, I could imagine, of like the country behind you, like, oh, that's our guy, like he's actually on the Billboard charts, like,
yeah, something like that. And it was interesting and weird at first because I wasn't really a musician either at that point. Like, I made music, but I considered myself just a hobbyist. I was having fun in the studio. Well, not even a studio, my little kitchenette where I had my setup with like one synth and a computer, really. And so it took me a while. I started touring in 2000 or 99, and I hadn't performed live electronic dance music before that. And I wasn't a DJ, like often is like people are DJs first and then become producers. But I started messing around making music first.
Yeah. Okay. So you were just doing it at home.
Yeah.
You didn't have much experience, what, like a year or two leading up to, or have you been doing it for a long time at that point?
No, I actually, interestingly too, I was quite a late bloomer. Like I loved music. I listened to my hair metal and European dance music and all kinds of stuff and loved it. But I didn't start until I was like 19, 20 years old. And I started like 96 or so, late 95, 96. And then my first track came out late 99. So a couple of years messing around and kind of burning some demo CDs and handing them out to radio shows and record labels and other DJs and stuff like that. But then I just sort of got lucky. And this guy, JS16 or Jaakko Salovara, a producer here in Finland, I gave one of my demos to him, and he loved one of the tracks, and it was particularly Sandstorm, or what later became Sandstorm. And then we started working together, and he signed me to his label, and all of a sudden I was a musician.
Yeah. So when you were creating, just messing around by yourself before you met him, mm-hmm. Did you have aspirations, or were you kind of just like, yeah, I'm just doing this for fun? Like, this is,
Look, it's so weird. Like, the traditional thing where, you see in the movies where people have like a hairbrush and they're singing in front of a mirror, like pretending to be a rock star. I never did that. I never really planned to become a musician. I was studying telecommunication, like production economics at a Polytech in Finland, and I was working part-time at this Apple authorized reseller and repairs place, and was kind of on my way to IT of some sort. Either our options would be like direct, like circuit design, like hardware stuff, or coding and or the logistics or running of it all, like on a telecom side. And that was very sort of up and coming and rising field in Finland. And I got to that school and kind of liked it too, although some of it went over my head. But so it was literally just a hobby. And looking back, I can say, like, I would burn CDs and I would send them to certain magazines that would do reviews and radio show, like dance music radio shows and stuff like that. But honestly, I thought I was here a hobbyist, and then several steps above would be the professionals. And that gap was, I wasn't sad, I wasn't down on myself, nothing, but I didn't think that gap would be something that I'd ever catch or know how to go there. So like the professionals were like on God status there, and I was just a hobbyist.
Wow. Yeah. And what was it like in Finland at that time? Was electronic music like starting to like pop off a little bit, or was it kind of still underground, or what,
If you think about like trance and house, and I don't know how much you're into music and different genres, but mine wasn't like deep underground, but it also wasn't like a pop dance, Euro dance. It was a little harder maybe, and little more underground, but not. Yeah. So that wasn't like on the charts anywhere. But Finland has a long tradition of sort of following what's going on in Europe, in UK, and then we're like Finland and Scandinavia, Nordics in general, have this affinity to like Spanish dance music, and often they would sing in English though, but like there's certain like factories that would make certain kind of Euro dance, and we would love that. And I grew up listening to that as well, but that was like a step poppier and step more melodic, not melodic, but kind of cheesy or more commercial, if you will. And I was loving that, but that wasn't what I actually started making really. So the dance music thing was there, and it would be played at clubs, but maybe not on more credible or serious level. We didn't,
Okay.
and you have to understand, Finland is a small country up north in Europe. So, and that time, 95-ish to 2000s, internet was just sort of starting to spread to be available for, everybody. I studied at a great school and we had great connections. So stuff like that, universities and polytechs in Finland would have been the first places to get good connections, but it would have been dial-up home for most people if they had internet. So you wouldn't have gotten the information like you do today. The world is so small today. You have a trend in US, you will have a trend in Finland the same week or something almost. So,
which is interesting too, to think like you were, learning this stuff without being able to search for anything really, right? You kind of on the ground level.
Like I think, I mean, I had a couple of friends who were doing the similar thing, and there were internet like message boards, like old school message boards, and I was part of some of those. And I don't remember what it was. It Yahoo then? Yahoo search maybe?
Yeah.
Not Google at that time. And you would find some people, but curiously, electronic music was in such a early stage. I, for instance, remember this particular example. Like, nobody talks about this kind of stuff anymore. But back then, when you made electronic music and you were talking about specifically drums, almost every instruction thing that you found online was talking about how you cannot do certain things with drums because then it doesn't sound real. So almost all the electronic drum programming was supposed to be kind of like a drummer would have played it, because you can't, hit that drum at the same time in real life. But with electronic samples, you could layer up whatever you wanted and whatnot. So that it was quite early on at that point. And you're right, it wasn't the easiest to find info at that point. But I did a lot of trial and error. I'm kind of like somewhat of an engineer minded, I guess. I like nerding out and I like just poking stuff and seeing what happens.
It stuck out when you said you were going to college for that stuff, and your mind just seems to kind of be wired in that direction,
Yeah.
So with Sandstorm, before it took off, like, was it an instant thing, or did you work on the song for a while, or was it just kind of like you made it and it was out and that was it? Like,
Well, two parts. It actually took like, a year and a half or something like that total. But I first was working on something else and I came across like in Sandstorm, there's this do-do-do melody thing. But I wasn't inspired to do the whole track then. I just saved that sound in my program that I then used, a thing called Fast Tracker 2. And it stood on my computer for a year and a half. And then I don't know why I picked it up again, opened the project, and it's called, bouncing or rendering out the main loop thing. And I put it to another software where I distorted it. And then it became the sound that is now the do-do-do sound in Sandstorm. And all of a sudden, sparks started flying. And it was like maybe a week or two that I got the track done to a point that I was demoing it to local DJs. And JS being one of those, and he got excited about it. And then we reworked the track. I can tell you right now, I wouldn't be here without that guy. He showed me the ropes, and he, at that point, made my sound so much better. The actual arrangement of the song changed a little bit. Like, it's written by me, the main sounds are by me, but it definitely found like the club format and better sound, better mixes through him. And, but yeah, it was literally like 2-3 weeks and that track was done, at his studio. And then like, so we would have been August or early September 99, and, end of October 99, it was released to, like, a first small release was done for Finnish DJs and stuff. So, it was like literally not an overnight, but me being a hobbyist, nothing happening. Then like 2-3 weeks span, and all of a sudden I become a touring musician.
Yeah. which is wild. So you said you weren't touring before, or playing shows, or just a couple?
No,
Nothing.
nothing
Nothing
really.
at all. So
No.
this thing gains popularity, and then you're like, got some shows. Were you nervous, like hopping onto that first
Oh,
show?
I was
and having
crapping
no
myself. I was crapping myself, man.
Yeah.
So, but I had this, it was like, it was overwhelming, but I also, looking back, I had this thing I thought that, I think that it was somewhere deep in me, like the aspiration. While I wasn't knowing and wasn't believing or thinking that I could go anywhere with it, but then when I had the chance, then I was like, hell yeah, now I'm gonna do anything and everything. And even the first shows and stuff, well, JS was a DJ and had also done live shows, and he showed me the ropes there. He actually even lent his gear in the beginning. And to be honest, my first shows were not that live, really. Like, there was a background tape and I would have played like one little sound or this and that on top of it, which was quite common actually, do like just a full on playback act. And, I didn't want to do that. I got bored / semi embarrassed quite quickly. And, electronic music done live is actually quite hard. Meaning really live. Like, you can program anything and everything and you could just press play, or you can just DJ. So then you're sort of honestly not doing anything other than playing those records, to stereotype a little bit or exaggerate a little bit. But I started doing sort of a hybrid live thing where I would have a background tape, but I would control it myself. It would be actually on my CD players. And then I would have a live sequencer and sampler and synthesizer from where I would just play stuff on top. And then I would have, like, between my actual tracks, I would have bridge parts that would allow a little bit more like live kind of just freestyle stuff or weird sounds and this and that. And that felt good because then I felt like I was actually doing something and not sort of deceiving the crowd. And I did those live shows and they developed over time too. Sometimes I had live percussionists with me. Sometimes I had guitar players, sometimes singers, sometimes the whole shebang. Like, I've done a gig with maybe actually with the dancers as well, like 8 or 10 people on stage with me as well and stuff like that. But since 2004 or so, I've DJ'd. So I went into, I learned how to DJ along the way, and then I went to DJing for reasons that kind of like, there's financial reasons, but there's also practical reasons. And around 2003 to 5 or so, the superstar DJ term became a thing and a thing around the world in clubs, and many clubs wouldn't even have like a stage anymore, but they would just have a DJ booth. And a lot of clubs wouldn't book live acts, but just DJs, because it just requires way less gear and way less hassle, usually way less people to pay. And so I started DJing as well, and I fell for that really quickly as well, because it's kind of like you get to play your music, but then you get to play anything else in the world you want, the kind of best of both worlds. And it's sort of easier to keep the crowd going as well when you can pick and choose whatever, not just your own back catalog.
Yeah, it's interesting what you're saying about like the getting bored quickly on stage, because I feel like the crowd could feel it too, like if you're engaged and like kind of alert and figuring stuff out, you could feel that liveness to the crowd. I'm sure you're more engaged too,
Yeah. And the same goes for DJing too. Like, when I started DJing, it was still a thing where I'm not even talking about vinyl versus CD DJing, because I started with CDs and that was uncool. but just in terms of performance, like back then, some of the big DJs were really, really cool, and they were not that engaging. They were mixing all the time. They were just so concentrated. And I really value that talent, that skill that they put into it. And they could mix so many tracks in so many, little time and do tricks and whatnot. But when I saw those DJs, I would marvel their skills, but then I would look at the crowd, and the crowd was just kind of not bored, but not really doing anything, not reacting much, because it was so much about the specific sound and then like one dude tweaking knobs.
Yeah,
And
technicalities and
technicality, and there is definitely space for that. But then I am not that kind of DJ. Like, I'm pretty good technically, even if I say myself, like, meaning just mixing wise normal stuff. But I at one point realized that I am going to not be pretending that I'm doing a lot of work there if I'm not doing a lot of work there, because there's in DJ world there's this knob tweaker, like somebody's doing something all the time and nothing happens with the sound really. But I realized that between mixing tracks and the way I mixed, I had some time, and I wouldn't just take a knob and tweak it for no reason, but I'd rather like look up and I'd make eye contact with the crowd. And I started like forcing myself honestly do nothing other than looking at the crowd. And very soon I realized that the crowd doesn't require me to do all kinds of stuff all the time. But when I'm present and when I'm actually acknowledging them and, you know, going and slapping the high five, you know, in the middle of a concert, if I can reach to the first row, that's what they appreciate about my stuff. And I play music that I love, and they can see that. And coming back to the engagement, whether it's technical skills or whether it's like being present, like, which I am, and I hear it a lot, and it's, I also feel that it's truth that you can see that I'm having fun. Every track I play is something that I want to play. Like, I'm DJing quite selfishly. Like, obviously I read the crowd and I plan my sets so that it should fit that, you know, particular night, that particular crowd. I can go left and right anytime I want to, and I do often. But I play music that I love. Like, I don't compromise playing some music that I don't like. And I think you can see that there's an aura of happiness or whatever energy you want to call it. And that's the kind of DJ I want to be too. Like, people feel it and they get hyped. They give their energy to me, and it's just like a very good, you know, infinite loop, basically.
Yeah, the feedback loop. Yeah, you can feel it when someone's like fully absorbed in what they're doing, and it's not like about something else. You know, that just translates almost over any medium. You know.
Yep.
Yeah.
True.
So this is taking off, right? Shows are starting to get a little bigger. What would you say the normal like venue size was in the beginning?
Well, I mean, from a couple of hundred people to 1,000, 2,000 people. Depends. Different countries, different places have different size of clubs, but I would play a lot of clubs and venues. Let's just say 500 to 1,500 people. And then, of course, summertime in Europe, especially summer festivals, which they could easily be 10 to 50,000 people as well.
Damn. So were you? So that lifestyle's like, you know, people are partying like the whole time, and you're pretty young, and you're like starting to, you know, get some steam behind you. So were you like partying a lot, or were you staying pretty focused, or what was that like?
I was focused, but not saying that I didn't party. I partied a good bit, but I'll actually say it right away. I've never done drugs, which is very weird in a dance sort of realm, because ecstasy, several other things these days, unfortunately, coke especially, is huge.
Molly, all that stuff.
But I've never done any chemicals like that. But I've drank my fair share, man. I don't think that sort of took me off focus. But yeah, I mean, I've had a hungover flight here and there, and a bad morning. So not gonna sugarcoat that at all. And I don't think over the years, I don't think I had like an alcohol problem, but definitely, like, I've now been sober for about 4 years, not 1,000%, but I've had 2 or 3, not even drinking nights, but some nights that I've actually enjoyed a couple beverages with my friends. But honestly, I'm not missing that. And it became to a point where I realized that Well, I wasn't craving alcohol, but it was everywhere all the time, all the flights, all the lounges, at the airports. And you can easily drink like 1 to 2 to 3 a day, and then you think about the week and you've drank whatever, 30, 40 portions of alcohol, and you never were drunk. You just like,
Passively.
and that, or on top of that, maybe one night a week you go play a party. I never really DJed drunk, but then after party, here and there. So
Yeah,
it's just unnecessary.
I was going to ask if you ever performed like, drunk, or you said you didn't do any drugs, so not that, but
I'm not going to lie. I've been drunk just maybe couple times, like actually drunk, but I don't like that feeling at all. And I don't need to be drunk to perform. Well, obviously now I haven't been drinking at all, but I never was somebody who needed like the encouragement like that. But there's a certain feeling, like I still sometimes remember the first drink or two, before the show, and getting the first little buzz, and then it's go time, going on stage, playing the first couple of tracks, and sort of calming down, like I got this. Got this feeling, that buzz plus that I got this euphoria. That's an incredible feeling. And sometimes I remember that, but now I have like 100% clarity, and that's even better. And I mean, I get those euphoric feelings, but I think there is a thing about the alcohol that does something different too, like whether it enhances it or changes the vibes. But I've realized that I don't need that either. And I'm still a creature of habit, by the way. And a lot of my not drinking has to do with, I actually didn't stop drinking. I stopped using processed sugars, which cuts out booze as well.
Yeah. Okay.
So
yeah,
I have some kind of a stomach thing where if I eat too much sugar, and actually towards the end before I stopped, which I've slipped back a little bit again, but I got like almost constant stomach aches and stuff like that. It was just whatever, weird. I was trying to find it was coffee or if it was sugar, whatever it was. And then when I stopped processed sugars for a while, it cleared up. So it's kind of easy to be without sugar, but also without drinking, because that was affecting my health directly every day, not just hungover time or something like that. But then before the show, very, very ritualistic, traditional, you're in the backstage, you pour a drink. Couple of buddies toasting this and that. I still do that, but I just mix my cranberry and Sprite or whatever we have mixes wise, and I still have a drink in my hand. Nobody's questioning anything. I don't have to explain anything to anybody. Just kind of, and half of it is there are those pushers, some of your friends or crew or whatever.
Oh yeah.
Or the outside pressure, sort of like, come on, man, just one drink, whatever. But then the other thing is that there's definitely a strong habit. But I've found out that I can easily fool myself with doing half of it. So just leaving the alcohol out, but having a drink in my hand and sipping that. So that's working really well for me. And like I said, I'm not an absolutist. I don't think I'll never have a drink again, but it's I'm not craving it anymore.
Yeah. No, there's something great I think you gain from leaving it behind, in a sense where like you're going on stage, it's a terrifying moment, I'm sure, especially in the beginning, like you don't know what to expect, so it takes the edge off. But when you learn to like face that, feel it, like, and then you embrace the moment, you almost start to learn more, gain more, like really be there,
Yeah, I have a circle of DJs with we talk about this kind of stuff, like an actual WhatsApp group, not a meme back and forth, but actual thing. And that's the one thing that I tell to my peers and my friends, is that it's actually once you get it done a couple of times, for instance, getting on stage, it's really empowering when you realize that you can do it. Like, and then when you can lean into the empowerment that I don't have to, and then also like I'm probably less likely to make mistakes because I'm all clear. And so that's the thing. That's a really good thing for me. And one other thing, I'm looping this back to skating, is that I started skating again about 5-6 years ago, and then I've been carrying my setup with me, or figured out a loaner setup somewhere. And I mean, that's often the night after or the day after. So I'd rather go skating than be hungover at my hotel room anyway. So it's kind of working out that way as well.
Yeah, it's awesome that like you get that more energy, excitement to do something and invest it somewhere else. Yeah,
absolutely.
So you said you got back into skating? Did you skate when you were younger, or was that?
Yeah, I skated. I don't remember exactly what age I was when I started, 10 to 12 or something maybe. And then I skated till I was 18, 19 years old, till I went to the military. It's a mandatory service in Finland. And I did my year there. And then I started to study in a different city at this school, the Polytechnic that I mentioned. And for whatever reason, I didn't decide to quit skating, but it was my circles changed. I don't know. I was just preoccupied, I guess, with the new school and whatnot. And all of a sudden, 23 or some years later, I realized that I hadn't skated. It's just like insane. Yeah. And then I actually went to a friend's place. He had like this micro ramp in his. He had this 3D design office, and I dropped in. I could do like a rock to fakie and axle stall. I'm like, holy crap, this is cool. I bought a board right away in like 2016, but then it took me a year, maybe 2 years until I actually started skating again.
Yeah. So do you use that as like, do you almost need to do that to separate from, making music all the time and like, like a kind of a release?
Yeah. So I played ice hockey all my life, and that was the thing, and I mean still is, but I've actually had a hard time finding time for hockey right now, and skating way too little as well. But yeah, the thing is, I don't know why I quit skating, because I love it so much. The minute I actually like just kicked around for a little bit with my new board a couple of years ago, it was like, holy crap, I can still stand on this thing. And I felt like I started from zero, but obviously, just to be able to stand on a board, it takes that muscle memory was there. My balance was a little off, but I got the basic stuff really quickly. And I think what really, really is the main thing for me is that I'm the best at skating that I've ever been right now. And that doesn't mean much, but it means that I wasn't that great back then, and I didn't have the Chat Caruso YouTube back then, for instance. Honestly, not just, kissing your ass. But, we had like a Tony Hawk flying off a vert ramp, and that was so far from what I was doing, like doing a mini and maybe a couple of crappy flat rails or whatever. So starting from there, it's been like slow but nice progression. And then it's like literally being able to do like YouTube tutorials and seeing guys like myself do it, and or people like you who know how to teach, who just don't show stuff, but actually put the pressure on the toes there and heel there, and like that's been crucial for me. And then I think over the years playing hockey and everything, I've learned to know my body better as well, and I know my physical abilities are going to be slowly fading from here on, onwards. But at the same time, the skating stuff with the benefit of better teaching and better access to stuff definitely is. I'm progressing still a little bit, so that's great.
Yeah. Hey, you don't use it, you lose it. You gotta.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing, like you said, this skating and hockey both are. Those are the only two things for me that have nothing to do with my finances, with my work. I'm not responsible for anybody. Well, the hockey, of course, the team, but it's my kind of guys, like 35 to 55, a bunch of has-been hockey players who have a good time. No offense to the other guys, but yeah, we're, nobody, we didn't really play at the, higher level NHL stuff or anything. So it's just good fun. And that's the thing, you get sweaty, you feel good about yourself. And then for that hour or 5, you forget about all the bullshit, all the responsibilities, and just try to get home with your own 2 feet.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool to hear that you're like still progressing. I feel the same way. I'm like, about to be 37. I'm like, I feel like I'm the best I've been my whole life. Like I thought I'd be, I took some years off. I thought I'd be declining by this point, but I think the sobriety and like gaining that love back gives you that energy and more of that focus. And you get older too. You kind of learn how to learn better as you get older,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've been following your stuff, both the tutorial stuff, but also like I really appreciate you sharing your experience in getting sober and being very honest and transparent about the kind of crappy stuff that came before and whatnot. But it's really like I know other people have said this to you, but it's so inspiring. It is so like, one thing is the skating and one thing is those kind of skills, but life skills are still like 1,000 times more important. And when you can learn those, be it from watching your videos or being involved somehow, being in the close circle or whatever, but those things, they mean a lot to, and I know a lot of people probably have gotten inspired by you and maybe quit drinking, maybe done other changes in their lives. So really wanted to say, thank you for that, because it's really cool.
Thank you, man. It really means a lot. Yeah. I honestly just, like you said, almost selfishly before, I'm just focusing on myself. Like if I do the best for myself, it seems to help others. You know what I mean? And part of that is sharing that and documenting.
Yes.
It,
So, I've been married for 15 years. And my wife and I, we've always had a really good sort of communication, but we've learned more these last couple of months. We've had some good like clicking happening and whatnot. And it's just interesting thing is like a lot of times people think that you, it's all about being good to somebody else, but you can't really do that proper if you don't know yourself well, and if you don't treat yourself well first, because that's not about being selfish. That's about like being selfish means something else. Right.
Yeah.
It's not if you take care of yourself, if you have your head clearing skate session, well, yes, it's away from the family, but if you're clear-minded and happy for the next 3 days for your family or your work and productivity, I mean, that's definitely money in the bank. And when you realize that you actually can and should be that sort of selfish, and you should be with people who allow that and who understand it, and also on their end do the same thing. I mean, we are individuals. I don't think whether you're in a relationship or not, but people should be taking care of their individual things first, and then not being just one with somebody.
I used to put everyone else first in my eyes, like I was helping everyone and stuff, but I wouldn't take care of myself. So it was a big lesson for me to learn, like almost to put myself first. And then I started to realize once I take care of myself, that's how I treat people. Like how you treat you is how you treat people in the world. It's like that's your habit of behaving.
Yeah.
So it really was, the drinking kind of opened my eyes to that, learning more about myself. And so I'm just thankful I was able to do it.
Yeah. Hey, how's your knee doing?
My knee, it's, seen better days. Things, got some torn ligament. What's it? Lateral and medial meniscus is torn. So I can still skate, but it's like at the point.
Does it get sore?
Yeah. Like in the winter here in New York, it's like I'll skate for a half hour and it's a little throbby afterwards.
Yeah.
But, it's not too bad. And I'm at the age where it's like do I get another surgery? It's like my third or fourth.
Yeah.
Do I just keep skating and
Yeah.
not go crazy? I'm like right in between.
Yeah. I felt so bummed for you because you had the surgery and then you heard it after again, man. I was
Right
just
after.
like, ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, you mentioned your wife. I was curious like how that has been touring, because I do, all my trips and everything too. Like how has it been from early on to now with the traveling and just balancing that life,
Oh yeah, so I was in a relationship before I met my wife in the beginning of my career, but my then girlfriend and I we drifted apart. It was not to go to that too much more, but it was an interesting thing because we got together before my career started, and then when my career started, I definitely was very gung ho doing anything and everything that I got to do, like interviews and gigs and any kind of promo. And that took so much time from me being with her. And I think that was like, she wasn't jealous like that about girls or anything. And I've been pretty much a good boy like that. But there was just a time taken from us and, my attention to her. And that probably ate up that relationship. And we, amicably, but we broke up. And then I was single for just a little bit, and I found my current wife. Actually, she's American. She's from Georgia, Marietta.
Really?
And I met her first at a gig in Orlando, and nothing happened then. But for whatever reason, we exchanged email addresses and later phone numbers, and just kind of started communicating. And then over a few months or whatever the time frame was, it became like we were talking quite a lot, but weren't like a couple or anything, like not even girlfriend, boyfriend, anything. Lived in different continents. But then she moved to study in Sweden, not study, but to au pair in Sweden, because she has Swedish background. Her mom has Swedish background. And then she was just like a 30-minute flight away. And all of a sudden I found myself flying to Stockholm here and there to see her. And then eventually she moved to Finland. And here we are. All kinds of stuff happened. We lived in Georgia for 6 years in between. And now I've been back in Finland for 9 or some 10 years. And she knew what she got into. That's, I guess, my long responses point, that initially she got to know me as the artist, and then when we got together, she actually sort of started working for me, but not working, but like helping me out, contacting radio stations if I went to a city, about an interview and this and that. She kind of started doing this promo thing for me, and then when we moved to Finland, or she moved to Finland, we started living together. It became sort of more like obviously we were girlfriend, boyfriend, but she also started helping me out like on daily things. And before our kids were, first kid, I got a 14-year-old son and 6-year-old girl. Before our son was born, she was actually touring with me, traveling as a tour manager, like taking care of logistic stuff and all kinds of awesome. Whatever goes in that. And so she knows what I do. And there was like 2-3 years that she traveled with me. So she kind of really knows what's happening on the road. And
that's cool. Yeah. She's like fully then understands a part of it.
Yeah.
Like, that's different than, when someone's just kind of saying goodbye, and that's kind of it. I mean, she kind of really understands it and was, a fan in the beginning. So. It's
still like the tour life with the family is still kind of difficult, but we've adjusted things and we figured out ways. Like these days, I rarely am gone longer than 2 weekends. So if I come to US, for instance, I might come do a weekend, then stay between, and then the next weekend. So I'm gone like a week and a half or so. Australia is a tough one because it's so far. You don't want to go there for a short time I actually have an Australian trip coming I think in March. and that's going to be 3 weekends, so that's going to be a long one.
Nice.
Gone.
Hey, get some good skating in there too.
Yes, dude. I've actually skated in Australia. I love it. There's good stuff there. And last year, over a year ago, exactly, actually. So 18th, I think, of December last year, all the family went to Australia for 3.5 weeks. So I did touring, and then
awesome.
we had a couple of home bases. We stayed in Sydney and Brisbane, and where else? Darwin, at least. And while I was on the road into different cities, hopped back and forth. They did some local tourist stuff, or went to see a zoo and all kinds of stuff, and some of that I got to take part in. But yeah, it's definitely something that we've worked on, and we're very much we have a really good trust, and she understands what my work is. And the thing that I've had to work mostly is that I stay connected, because it's really easy for me to be like, hey, I'm on the road for 2 weekends, and time difference is 7 to 10 hours when I'm in US that way, and the same the other way if I'm, say, in Australia or somewhere in Asia. To remember to do the call, do messages, arrange a time when I connect with her as a husband and wife, and then when we connect with the kids and whatnot. It's like that. You have to do that actively for that stuff to work. Because if you're gone for like a month and there's no connection, which I've kind of been guilty of something, not a month, but too little of that. And then it's usually a little cool when I come home.
Hey man, I completely understand. Like that skating across America thing. I was so absorbed in it, and then like you said, the time difference. Sometimes you're just like, the day gets away. And you're just like, and there's nothing malicious about it. Like you said, day gets away. That's what it is. Like I can really understand, like, you meeting this couple that talk about cool stuff, and then you're meeting somebody who skates with you, and then you go and you have your hands full of editing, transferring files, getting, nutrition in you, icing your feet, and then passing out. Like, it's easy to be like, oops, I forgot to do, not forgot, but it's a slip today. Right. Yeah.
And it's not an excuse, but it's kind of just human nature. And one of those things is that when you have that freaking laser focus that you have, I mean, it's easy to be in that focus. So not obviously knowing your partner at all, but what I do know is that she must be an independent, strong woman, not taking crap from anybody, and showing you your place when need to. Probably.
Yep. That is a pretty accurate description right there. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So, as you've done all these travels, you mentioned quickly like how I might be meeting people and stuff. Makes me think, have you had any crazy interactions meeting people, or like, is there any one wild one that sticks out, or?
Oh, dude, we don't have enough time for that.
Really?
No, there's a lot. People are so cool and so weird at times. I don't know, like, I always say that, this is my job, so I have to make money from it. So the financial side is one, the accolades like awards or chart positions is one, but the coolest thing really is where people have a story to tell. Like my music has left a mark in their history somehow. They've met their partner on a dance floor, my track playing, or this and that, and that's kind of cool. I actually often have mentioned this. There's this couple, Bob and Marianne, from San Francisco. When I first met them, they were in their 60s, I want to say. They were in the front row at this club called 1015 Folsom in San Francisco. And, not in a negative way, but it really, caught my eye, like clearly two older looking people at a dance music club and going hard, like partying. I made a point of going to just say hi to them, and Bob and Marianne, they'd been dancing since like freaking jive days, since like whatever 50s or 60s. They'd been married for a long time, and then they loved dance music, and mainly only going to dance clubs. And I befriended them, and then was it, I don't remember exactly, 8 years ago maybe now, or something like that, Marianne was diagnosed with cancer, and she lost the fight, unfortunately. She passed away, and I'm still in touch with Bob here and there, and whenever I go to San Francisco, we usually, he at least comes to the club, or we go and grab dinner or something like that. And it was such a long-lasting memory, understanding that dance music is not just for young people, for instance, that thing. And these two people, imagine them coming to a club. People are going to be staring at them because they are older. Marianne looking the cutest, sweetest, not a grandma, but like a teacher, did not look like a dance music person. Yeah. But I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just like they would, people would pay attention to them. And I got to meet them, and I got to, pick their brain about some life stuff. And then, I get to call Bob, my friend, and he actually just sent me a picture from the last show that Marianne and him and I shared together. So it's that kind of stuff that mostly sort of gets me. Like, it can be the most lighthearted anecdote, obviously, is great, but then there's like true, like, personal stuff that I've gotten to share with people who I've never would have even, come across if it weren't for me DJing.
Yeah, to me, that's the best part of like putting something out there. When you're letting, you're putting some work out there for other people to enjoy, and like that to me is the best part of that. It's like that interaction and bonding through the meaning of it. Yeah. But do you enjoy doing like bigger shows in that sense, like getting like everyone kind of involved in that moment, or the more intimate shows where it's like smaller and
I love them both, to be honest. Like the intimate shows where, it's like 100 people room or something like that, 100, 200 people room, where you literally like can slap high fives over the desks. You smell people's sweat, basically. Those are amazing because that's such a shared thing. The eye contact is real. The smiles are real. And those moments where as a DJ, I know what's next, but they don't yet. When I start mixing in a track and somebody recognizes the track and their face lights up and I catch them at that moment, like, that's so amazing. It's very it's very different. It's so intimate and personal. And then at the same time, you have like 5,000 or 20,000, 50,000 people, and you're so far and so high that it's maybe like, whatever that would be, like 100 feet away would be the first people or something. So there's no eye contact. You're just looking at somebody's direction. Yeah, you're putting your hands up and somebody's putting their hands up. Well, I don't know if they are looking at me per se, or like there's no personal communication. But then at the same time, those masses, when they roar, when they scream, when they jump together, it's that energy is just like.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. So what's the biggest show you've played?
I've played like 100,000 people radio thing in UK, which was at this was actually wild. So it wasn't my only show. It was like, my show only. There were other, like, there were some pop acts, some dance acts and whatnot, but this was early 2000s. It was like this long corridor type of, almost like a golf green type of thing. It was really long, like, I want to say half a mile, longer than quarter mile at least. And it was wide as well, but DJ booth was like on a, 3-story tall, this huge setup. And when I played and the people started jumping, I was thinking like, are they dumb because they can't jump to the beat? But then I realized it went as a wave. And it took me a while, but then I realized that it was so long that people heard it at different times because the sound travels certain speed. And like, if you're at a big stadium, they have these, it's called like, they have delay lines around the stadium. So everybody hears the music at the same time, basically, right? But at this event, they just had the speakers in the front and they were blowing that way. And so, 1,000 feet away, people heard it later. So then they would obviously jump up and down later. But it looked like this wave. It was mad. It was so strange. And that was a short, I think I played 3 or 4 tracks. It was a typical radio show, just like swapping from act to act to act. But one of the coolest things that I played, and if you want to, you can find a video of it, but 2016 to 2017 New Year's Eve in Helsinki, Finland, I played at this like town big square and synced Sandstorm drop to midnight, the ball drop basically, and it was televised. It was the start of our 100-year anniversary year celebrations. So when the year changed to 2017, we got our independence in 1917, and the whole year was basically a celebratory year. And I got to start that with my track. It was mind-blowing. I cried like a little baby, dude. Yeah. But it was also televised by our national broadcast company, and it's pretty insane to get to do that. And now when people ask me like, what's the best gig ever? I mean, that's my answer forever, because my home country, and I had that honor. And that was about like the Helsinki downtown area, that there was maybe 80,000 people there, I was told. So that was pretty big as well.
That's huge. And when you're doing these types of shows, I always wondered, like, do they provide you with all the speakers and lights and setup, or is that like on you generally? Because that could be
usually I am booked to play an event where the production is also organized by the organizer who does everything. So there's professional sound companies who bring in stuff, and like, I know you've arranged like skate happenings and whatnot, and often those kind of things is like either the circle of your friends, somebody has an amp or a couple of speakers, and then those are thrown together, or there's a favorable cheap local sound company that brings in like their smallest kit, so to say, and then you can blast it. That kind of stuff is usually more sort of like grassroots, but I don't throw parties myself usually. I've taken part in like the risk and organizing some couple of times over the years, but normally I'm booked to go play somewhere. So basically I show up with I use my laptop as a source of the sound, and then I have these controllers that I press play and whatnot with, and they provide a very standard Pioneer mixer usually. And I have my rider, but it's a normal sort of standard tech rider that I'm requesting the gear, and they are supposed to provide me that.
So that's got to be one of the advantages of electronic music, like doing DJ gig, because like you see a rock show and they got like trailers and trailers of equipment, crews they got to pay for, like it's a giant overhead, and you get to travel kind of light, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, there are people who travel way lighter than I do. Like they have a USB stick or couple and headphones. That's it, because the current, they are not even CD players anymore, but they are USB players, like media players. And you literally, it's enough, you just plug in the USBs and then you start playing. But I love to do a little, kind of more, a little differently. I still play sort of the same way, but I can do stuff a little differently from my laptop. I can add loops and samples and whatever a little bit in a different way, I would say. It doesn't really matter what each to their own, but so I never went with just USB stick way. And it's actually funny, my tour manager, who is usually on longer trips with me, he is sort of well, jokingly bitching about me not doing just the USB stick, because that would make his life a lot easier, because the only thing he would do is put that in, and then I come and play. Yeah. Now he needs to plug in, 3-4 cables and set up the controllers in my laptop. So takes 2 minutes more.
So I want to jump back to like creating Sandstorm. I was curious if you, like, when you were making it, were you thinking of a certain feeling? Were you trying to convey something, or was it just like kind of the sound and kind of writing that wherever it took you, or
that's a good question, and that's actually a really valid question. And I around the time when I was making Sandstorm, but also other tracks, I would actually go to a couple of my local nightclubs, sit in a corner somewhere, listen to the DJ play, and just enjoy the music, and also check the crowd reactions. And I would pretty much like run home and have whatever I felt, some highlights or some memory marks of that night, and I start working in the middle of the night with not trying to copy the music that was played, but the vibe was in my head. And that's how I made a lot of my early stuff. It's just kind of like feeling the vibe. And I guess the same goes for Sandstorm, but what really, I didn't have like a happy or uplifting or sad or a particular mood in mind. But when I distorted that sound, the original sound, and put it through a distortion unit, something lit up in my head like that. Because I had that same loop, the same melody and the rhythm for the year and a half, whatever, and nothing came out of it. But when that was distorted, something happens to the sound that just started like firing things up, and all of a sudden just like, I gotta do this, I gotta find the chords, I gotta blah blah blah, and hearing that sound just drove me to fill in the blanks, if you will. And I think a lot of my music making is trial and error. Like, not I think, but it is. And I still, at some point I thought, because I'm not a classically trained musician, and at some point I kind of looked down on myself, I don't even know music theory that well and blah, blah, blah. But then I think it's worked for me too. Like, I'm a very average sort of listener and a music lover, and I couldn't use the most intricate chords and voicings and this and that, because I don't know how that's done from the theory standpoint. But I hear what I like, and when I like something, it immediately triggers something more. Like, it's kind of like you have one sound, and then I just start hearing something in my head, rhythm-wise, melody-wise, and then I start filling in the blanks with another sound that I kind of think what it should be. When I find that out, then I have 2 layers, then I let them play, then I start hearing something different between that, and 2, 3, 5, whatever layers, and then in a short sort of looping thing, I have a full track that I know that I can make a full track out of, even though it's just still like 8 bars of repeating stuff. But there's a trigger that I can already kind of hear, like, this is what it would sound like when it's at a club, when it goes to the breakdown, when it builds up. And there's kind of, and that happened with Sandstorm, although I wasn't even a DJ at that point, and I wasn't seeing and hearing it like that, but something was like pushing me to. Okay, so
you'll just feel it then, basically. Like,
yes.
I play guitar, and I'll hear maybe like a Hendrix song or something, and I won't pull the exact like chord progression, but like the mood, like you were saying, like the feeling or something. I'll get like an idea for a certain rhythm, and then I expand off of that.
Yeah.
And
do you have delay pedals then as well?
I only play acoustic.
Acoustic,
I
okay.
have no equipment. Yeah.
Okay, so but I'll give you. I think you will get this though. So what I do often, I don't play acoustic guitar nor any guitar really, but what I do often is that I have a sample or some sound, or a synth sound, and I put a delay usually the BPM that I am in, so like 128 BPM or whatever, and then it's like a 4th note delay or 8th note delay, something like that. And then I start playing. And by the way, I've got a keyboard here, so that's what I'm trying to show. Then I start playing, and when I play like against or with the delay, that starts giving me different rhythm things, because it depends on if I hit my notes on the 1 or if I skip 1 note and hit it, and then if I hit between the notes or between the divisions, then it gives me like different rhythms kind of semi-automatically. I mean, I'm creating them, but I don't necessarily know that I'm creating something that I like until I hit the note.
Right.
So then I hear the delays, like the initial actual sound, but then I hear the delay. If I play another note, like higher or lower, but fitting the scale, then it creates a harmony. If they fit on top of each other, if they have a tail, and then I start hearing those extra notes in all of that. So that's why I'm asking, because like, U2, Edge, a lot of his stuff is based on like the delay timing and him playing with the delay. So a lot of guitar players actually get their ideas sort of similarly that I do. Like I mess with the timings, and then I hear harmonies there as well.
Right. It introduces like something you wouldn't be able to necessarily play by yourself. So you get hit with it and you're like, oh, that's something cool.
Exactly. But it's a similar thing though. If I swear you've done a skate trick that you didn't try.
Oh yeah. 100%.
And then, or you bailed something that were like, holy crap, if I just done that, it would have been a totally new trick. And it's a similar thing where you just, by happenstance, you realize that you could do something, but you wouldn't have come up with just from scratch.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because like it's tough to like quantify the success of that song, right? I'm sure you've like tried to all these years having a career and stuff. It's like, I'm sure that's been such a journey in itself of like, letting go of it and like all that whole, were there any like, I don't know, revelations that you had, like thinking about how to create another viral song, or is it just simply like,
please tell me.
It's just a moment in time, and it just happened.
I think the thing is, I am so immensely proud of the track, and I did create it, and like I said, I needed JS16's help to get it off the ground. But it also is the nature of my sort of trial and error that I can also listen to it at least a little bit as, not as a fan, but as a listener. Like still, when I listen to, I know every freaking millisecond of the track, every sample of it, every layer, everything. And like you said, it would be beneficial for me to create another viral sensation. But it is just, even if I know how I made it, how it happened, but there's just, like you said, it was tied on that time, that era. Right. That's one. People often like ask me, like, what do you think if Sandstorm was released last year or 10 years ago, would it have done the same thing? I don't know. Maybe nobody would have cared. Maybe it would have been bigger. I don't know. But that's just the thing. And like, I mean, I know you've done the YouTube thing for a long time, and it's not easy to create numbers. Like you think like this thumbnail, this storyline, this trick, this whatever, or in my case, this track, this music video. Yeah. It's not easy to create numbers or something that generates insane numbers. Like you can have the best piece of art, you can have the best technically produced record, and nobody might be interested. That's the fun of it, but also it's highly frustrating sometimes.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's tough to like, it's almost like you just got to let go, really, because you don't know, ultimately you don't have control. You could try your best to do techniques that are best practices and things like that, but at the end of the day, it's like certain things come together, a certain trend or a certain thing just kind of they meet, and it takes off.
I've been asked, like, am I pissed off that actually more so like, are you going to ever create another one? Well, I'm pretty sure not, but that's not like, I'm not looking like down on myself. I don't think little of myself, but I've come to understanding that there was so much more that happened and snowballed than just whatever my talent or me creating the track. I don't really believe in any of that woo, but like you could say like the stars aligned and, blah, 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 this and that, butterfly effect, I don't know, whatever. And there's a bazillion variables which are impossible to recreate like that. So at some point I did let go of that, and I still make my music quite similarly, not always technically similarly, but in the same mindset. Like I'm tickled by sounds. I'm tickled by these certain kind of chord changes, certain harmonies, certain kind of energy. And when I sit down, I rarely think like I need to produce this specific genre of thing or this and that, but I sit down and, lack of better description, but I let the music or the track make itself, kind of. So those happy accidents, I create those conditions, and I'm at one point, and I for a while thought that this is going to be a house record, but now I found a great melodic, big layered synth sound that lends itself more to like a trance genre track. Well, then I just go trance. Who cares? Like nobody's making those limitations other than myself. And I've tried to actively think less and less limitations all the time, just like let it flow.
I actually really respect that and try to practice it myself. Like, why am I creating this content? Do I want to just go viral and just have numbers? Like, it's kind of, it's our jobs, so we kind of need it. So it's a weird balance. But for me, I try to just maintain that, like, if I'm doing something I love and keep doing it, that's the best way I'm going to help and make good stuff, I
always say that, like, I'm remaining actively naive about the fact that if I create, like, I want to believe that if I create something meaningful for me, it's going to resonate somehow. And in my case, it would be great if it resonated Sandstorm wise again, but at the same time, I don't need a Sandstorm to maintain, to support my family. I need just normal, good amount of gigs. I need new music out that people pay attention to, but it doesn't have to be a bazillion streamer, for instance, if we were talking about practical terms. And once I realized that, I stopped sort of panicking and thinking about those streaming numbers and whatnot. I think my life has been a lot calmer and nicer since.
Yeah, 100%. It's always better when you just focused on the craft and not the numbers. Sometimes, in the early stages, it's tough because you got to pay the bills. And
of course, and I'm not being like hypocritical. I understand the realities of life. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong.
Not at all. Yeah, I didn't think that at all. But hey, new album, sick. Love Closer Together. Got the skateboarding in there. I love it.
Man, that was a dream come true, man. I don't know if you ever followed vert skating, but one of the guys who is flying in it is Jussi Korhonen, aka Kara, who is 48. I'm 48 as well, as by the way. Us old guys were there. But he's actually one of our biggest vert skaters ever, and he's still rocking it. I had the, honor of having him on my video, but there's also a huge bunch of, it was filmed in Tampere in Finland, and the local skate scene is insane. And they have a school, that has like a skate, I don't know what you could call it, like skate, it's a basic school, but you study other stuff, but they have it's skate leaning or whatever you call it. And that city is very, very good with skating. Like probably, Helsinki is our capital and has a great skate scene, but Tampere has really, really gotten up there. They're opening parks and the city is supporting skating a lot, which is really cool.
I think it
and
comes through
I
in
got
the
to.
video.
Yeah, and
Like
exactly. I got to
great.
combine my love for skating, but then the locals showed up, and it was insane.
Yeah,
There was like the music video production crew had a plan, and obviously they executed it. But the director said that it was much easier than he thought, because it just basically filmed itself. We had just a jam session.
Yeah.
I played music, and we were supposed to shoot a thing like a party, which we did. But also, I played probably a couple of hours before that, and it was just a big sort of skate jam. It didn't really feel like a music video shoot like that.
Yeah, it was cool because normally when you see skating in a video, it's kind of like you could tell it was like planned. We're gonna have skating in the video, and yours seemed more of like how skaters are hanging out, and like they were ripping, and it just had a good vibe to it. It's cool.
Well, I'm really glad you say that, because that was I wanted skating in a video, but that was my biggest fear, that it feels like a slap on and an old timer wants to belong kind of thing. And I've gotten so many good feedback bits about that. I mean, but also the company who did it, Dumbo, they've shot. They're skaters themselves, several of them. They've shot skate videos. They've done stuff for Red Bull internationally. And I mean, so they had like an 8mm old school camera. They had like a handy cam, but then they have also their, like big RE film,
they have the
thing.
Skateboarding eye. It's a little different than the regular
absolutely
filmmaking eye,
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome, man. Thank you so much for coming on the pod. Appreciate it, man.
Of course. Hey, you know what? I'm gonna promote a little bit.
All right, yeah. What you got?
Yeah. This is what I'm riding right now.
Hey, I need one of those.
So it's a 4-ply hybrid Canadian maple, fiberglass, and carbon fiber. It's a twin tip. I ride an 875, but I have an 825 as well.
Interesting. 4-ply. So that's kind of thinner than your normal board, right? Is it lighter?
It's really thin, and it's quite a lot lighter, but it's a stiff board and maintains the pop. It's
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah,
I wonder
it's really
how
nice.
Do you think it helps more for street skating or transition, or it doesn't really have a...
I don't know if what it helps, but what I do know is that hand on my heart. So I'm selling a very limited drop of my boards, but it's this Finnish company called Napalm Custom, and it's a similar concept to the Powell Flight Deck, but I think this is a little better, to be honest. But
hey,
I don't know.
I have to try one.
And the thing is that it will last you about twice as long, because it won't lose the pop. Also because the carbon fiber and fiberglass inside, and then it also has plastic reinforcements on the tips, so it doesn't chip as bad. And for my kind of skating, those will last forever, because I mainly do pools and minis and stuff, a little bit of vert, very little like any sort of tail scraping, i.e. street ollie and whatnot. So
right.
But similarly to vinyl and CD sort of fighting in music, my kind of thing, there's the old school, you need a 7-ply, Canadian maple board and nothing else. But what happened to me is that I had a 23-year gap, so I don't have the baggage of being in the scene, or I never was like a core guy anyways. So when I came back, my first board was a regular board, but then the second one was a Sandro Diaz model from Napalm. And I loved it. And then like last year, year ago, we started talking, and I know the owner of the company, Napalm, and I had a chance to do my own, and here I am with not a pro model, but a custom model,
it's a pro
my
model.
own board.
Yeah. That's funny, man. Oh yeah. Well, dude, I appreciate you coming on, man. It's been awesome.
Hey, thank you,
man.
You
got a session lined up after this, so I'm gonna let you go.
I know I'm going skating. It's been a while, a week and a half, but I'm healing from a little bit of a hot pocket on my ankle, so I don't know. We'll see how this is gonna go, but
all right,
gotta try.
Thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you too, and looking forward to your new adventures, and good luck with your book. And I know you have some video stuff coming as well. So I'll be checking them out.
Oh yeah, appreciate you, man.
All right, man. Later.
Be good. Later.